Welcome to Multiplicity Entrepreneurship, the new normal, with our special guest facilitators, Chief Multiplicity Pioneer, AliNICOLE Wow, she does it all, and the Multiplicity Moundbuilder, Joseph L. Jones Jr. AliNICOLE and Joseph are the founders of the Multiplicity Monument Empires, which features platforms Multiplicity Entrepreneurs, Multiplicity Entrepreneurship Made Easy, Mini Ways to Multiplicity mini courses, Multiply, Maximize and Monetize with Multiplicity-Preneurship, Multiplicity-Preneur Architects, and the Multiplicity-Preneurs Marketplace Media Tours. They've co-authored works in this area, such as the Conscious Multiplicity Branding Factor for New Era Entrepreneurs and Brand Building with Multiplicity Entrepreneurship Made Easy. AliNICOLE is also the author of the Multiplicity-Preneur Revenue Factor Made Easy. Today, they'll be providing a conversational training on multiplicity entrepreneurship, now being the new normal, and how it's a requirement in the new era marketplace in order to expand and diversify the entrepreneurial frameworks to thrive in the new business world. I know that for most entrepreneurs and business owners, the concept of multiplicity entrepreneurship will be new and seem contrary to what you've been conditioned to believe, that you can't effectively serve more than one niche. However, AliNICOLE has been doing this work for over a decade and became the chief pioneer in this area. She's debunked the myth that a solo brand can't run a business, much like a super Walmart with multiple focuses. She successfully created AliNICOLE Wow, she does it all media empires, and that serves several niche markets with over 500 online platforms. And she's published close to 300 works on Amazon for different industries. Joseph's been serving with her for many years with his multiplicity of works. They've been way ahead of the business marketplace in their innovation and are here to serve in this era as Chief Multiplicity Architect Advisors. Now, I've been working with both these people for a while, and I've been learning so much about this area in my mentorship with AliNICOLE for building my next level of expansion. I've also enjoyed the wisdom, insights, and outstanding example that Joseph has demonstrated in this area as well as part of the mastermind group that I belong to. I know that you, the listeners, will be enriched by all that they have to share. So get ready to learn how diversity, multiply, maximize, and monetize in new ways for business. Welcome. Now, AliNICOLE, both you and Joseph have been expanding this work in such a massive way to where it's now become the new normal for entrepreneurs and business owners. For those of us in business, we could certainly use a new normal. And I can see how this level of entrepreneurship is a requirement based on the process that I've been going through with you both. I just wish others would have known this sooner, to have been better prepared for the shifts that are now at hand. So I'm so excited that you both will be sharing about why this way of doing business is now a requirement and how others can get started in this area. So welcome to you both.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so
great
much.
to be here.
Yes. It is an honor to be here.
Great to have you both. So I'm going to hand over to you.
Yes, thank you. It's exciting to be here with you and talking about this topic, which is so important. And Joseph and I, as you mentioned, have been doing this work together for quite some time, and it has been an absolute pleasure and honor to be mentoring you in this way with this particular area as well. And you have been doing phenomenal so far in the leveling up and expanding for your brand and business. So I just want to commend you, Gina, for that and your great work.
I've certainly learned a lot. I was definitely one of those people who had been brainwashed into thinking, I've got to niche down, and it was so uncomfortable. It just didn't feel right.
Yeah. To most it doesn't. And I'm so glad that you started with that, because that's really a great place to to open up with is that discomfort. And I want to speak to that really quickly. Is the reason why the discomfort takes place is because we're here to expand and evolve and continue to bring forth the greater gifts in a higher level of demonstration. And when there's been the conditioning and the confinement around only, serving one niche and not showing up in a multitude of ways, it really constricts the expression that wants to come forth. And what happens is that so many people are unfulfilled because that untapped potential is not being expressed. And as I said before, it just really constricts and confines. And so that's where the uncomfortability takes place, because it's actually not a normal and natural way of being, even though that has been, the conditioning. And we're in a new era of not just the business expansion, but also entrepreneurial economics and business finances. So a lot of that is shifting. And most entrepreneurs have certainly been underprepared in these shifting dynamics. And you can totally, relate to that there's been this emergence of a new marketplace coming forth. And people have just been behind. They're not even aware. Now, multiplicity entrepreneurship has been this emerging new normal, and it sets up the dynamics for ultimate success for entrepreneurs and business owners to really make what I say a profound impact in income, especially in the online marketplace. But as we've seen and experienced, and Joseph definitely can, speak to this as well, is that most entrepreneurs have really struggled over the years in their businesses. And it's been sort of this cycle of the feast and famine, and really trying to duck and dodge, sort of having those scenarios. And this typically has happened mostly with the coaching and consulting models. But what the multiplicity entrepreneurship does is it helps to bring forth what I call this greater calling of an empire's expression and also a brand's expression. And when this takes place, one's business becomes expansive in order to be able to move forward. And there's been so much noise, and I'm definitely going to bring Joseph in to talk about this, because we talk about this all the time, and it's just a part of our work. There's been so much noise in the traditional business frameworks and those norms, and it really has oversaturated the marketplace with this dominating influence. And what happens, and Gina, you definitely can attest to this, it makes it hard to hear the calling of a new way for this way of entrepreneurial beingness that you've been learning about. It makes it hard for them to hear what's really calling them, so that they can serve as a business owner in a much more expansive way. And of course, you both have heard the concept, and I'm sure many who are listening have heard that if you try to do so many things and try to serve more than one niche, that you become this jack of all trades, but you become a master of none. And that, as I would say, has been true to a certain extent at one point in the business world and even in entrepreneurship. However, it certainly is a new day as it relates to the industry innovations that have been underway. And this has been the work that Joseph and I have been, bringing forth, is that the multiplicity entrepreneurship has been really this dominating force under the radar. And, for me, this has been more than a decade. And you shared that as you were, setting the listeners up for what we would be bringing forth today. And just a little bit of our backgrounds. I certainly have debunked, that myth. And I've known for quite some time that from the professional experiences of people limiting themselves to this one niche wonder syndrome, or I like what Joseph calls it, kind of a one-trick pony type of thing. He'll speak about that. I knew that in the business world, people were going to reach a point where they were going to be left broke, busted, and disgusted, and eventually closing up shop. And that's just really, honestly, one of the most tragic things that I've had to witness over the years. It's been hard to witness this and see several, mostly small businesses and solo entrepreneurs having to leave behind their dreams because they've just really been following this limited paradigm and those traditional frameworks that could only fail them. But jump in, Joseph. I know we can, or Gina, we can talk about this, but I thought it was important just kind of to share, what I've shared so far, just in terms of this new normal of this type of expression actually having to come forth now, for sure.
Well, you explained that very, very well. What I would like to add to that, first, thank you very much, Gina, for allowing us to have this conversation and for the magnificent work that you're doing.
Thank you.
What I would say also, as far as business is concerned, we say the term new normal, and we want to emphasize the word new. We're in a new time, we're in a new day, we're in a new era. And business of the past and business as it has been done traditionally is fast going away. So we're going to have to make some swift moves and adjustments. Otherwise, we're going to face some very serious consequences. The idea that we had when we first began our businesses and began working in the marketplaces, we had a desire to present a product, to make a profit off of that product, and to provide goods and services and something that would be beneficial for the people that we're presenting our products to. Today, what we're looking at is the method that we've always used to do that has changed. Whereas all of our focus at one time was on just one thing and funneling that one thing through one expression. And once that door closes, then we're looking around to try and figure out what to do next. That is the position that a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs find themselves in right now, because the marketplace has shifted right before our eyes. And if we don't begin to make some very swift adjustments at this time, we're going to find ourselves out of business. It's very much a situation where we talked about in the past about how you have to diversify or you will disintegrate. And businesses have already disintegrated. They have already fallen by the wayside. What we're trying to do is make sure that you understand the importance of this time so that you can make much needed now time adjustments to save your business, to prosper and thrive during this time, and to gift the public with the gifts that you have to offer them.
Well stated. Oh man, that was magnificent.
I think one of the things that has struck me, there's two things really. The first is that all through my time as an entrepreneur, I've listened until recently to the assigned wisdom. And there are so many people who were saying, what you're doing is too wide, you're trying to serve too many different groups of people. And for me, it was the difference between, being able to provide a wheel with all of the spokes being whole and true, and so a wheel being holistic and being able to move forward, and having to then create a model where the spokes were missing or uneven and it felt clunky. But because there was such a body of people saying, no, this is what we need to do, and there was no alternative being offered, then I tried to fit their model. And it reminds me, as I think now, in terms of what you're both saying, particularly in terms of what Joseph just said, that, you know, at one time people believed the world was flat. And all of the theories about the world being flat were able to explain the tide and the winds and the seasons and everything. And it seemed so plausible. And when I first came across your work, what I recognized is that I had been sucked into an old way of being. And now you're offering those people who are listening the opportunity to recognize that there is a new way, and it's not part of the herd, it's not part of the crowd. It is about stepping out and doing something new, which if you try to do it on your own is very scary. But I think one of the things for me, which has been such a gift, is the opportunity to learn from other people's experience, those people who have actually made that transition and can see that it's working.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is certainly not a journey that you can go alone. And because it is not the traditional way of doing things, and as you said, that being sucked into the conditioning and the noise, and something I said earlier is that, yeah, the oversaturation of that particular concept. And, you know, when you think about it, and Joseph and I have certainly had several conversations, you know, around this, is that model actually what has been presented as a, you know, a paradigm, so to speak. It actually has never really made sense. And most people are now waking up saying, yeah, why did I put all my eggs in quote unquote one, you know, one basket? And don't get me wrong, I do understand certainly where they've been coming from. And one thing I will say is that in terms of trying to have this holistic approach under one umbrella and have all of that in one place, no, that certainly is not something that would really work well, but there is a way to do it. And this is something that I've been doing, like I said, for years. So in fact, I've been the one, as I mentioned, to pioneer this new expression and to definitely demonstrate that a solo brand particularly can run an operation much like a super Walmart or super Target, and be able to leverage multiple talents and offerings and even their services that they really feel guided to share with the market. However, you can't really do it under that traditional solo entrepreneur business model. So yeah, it would be confusing if trying to actually bring all of that into one place to present to a market. But this is where the conscious multiplicity entrepreneurship, where there's a higher level of consciousness that comes in to help brands understand how to start categorizing and repositioning themselves so that they can be presentable to target the audiences that need those, you know, particular things. And I kind of have an ultimate funnel system around all of that. But yeah, having to have all of those components on one side is not what I teach. So as you've been seeing with me, Gina, and of course Joseph, because he's been a part of this, he well knows that the categorization and diversification of the branding is important, and being able to do that on different platforms or on social media in a very unique way so that people are guided intentionally to the segments of your offerings that they need to be, you know, a part of. Because if we do bring them to one place and it's kind of cohesive with all these different aspects, then certainly it can get confusing. And it's like being in an ocean and there's multiple waves, and those waves have different, you know, names and areas on it. And the surfer is confused, like, wait, you know, the sailor, like, wait a minute, I'm in this ocean, I see all these different things, I want to go to this direction, and ultimately can drown within that experience. But something I will be sharing as we get more into this conversation, you know, today, I definitely will be sharing ways that people can categorize. Something I do want to bring up, going back to something I mentioned earlier about the whole concept around if you try to be a master, a jack of all trades, you become a master of none. And one of the things that most fail to realize, which is missing in the business frameworks from a spiritual higher source perspective, is that the concept I've embodied is that, if you try to do too many things, you become a master, of none, so to speak. But what they leave out is that if you become a master of yourself and your divinity, then you are able to defy the impossible. So it certainly can be done, but it can't be done under the understanding and the frameworks in which they have presented. Master self, master your divinity, and you certainly will be able to diversify and multiply your efforts in a much more meaningful way. So before getting into anything else, definitely want to hear from you, because he's been with me for so long, and like you said, he is the multiplicity Moundbuilder. So he certainly knows about building effectively, for this new era.
Well, that definitely speaks. Thanks so much for that. That certainly speaks to my calling in terms of first mastering yourself and then bringing that mastery into the marketplace, or whatever it is that you market, whatever business endeavor that you're involved in. It comes from a place of mastery because you're in that place. Right. I think where the clash comes in is between the traditional model of focus on one thing, and then the other model is don't leave any money on the table. Both of those models have their place. Yes. Where we are right now is you don't want to leave any money on the table, because if one door is shut down, the traditional model and the traditional way that you've been doing things has been shut down. You want to make sure that you have open doors so that you can funnel through that mastery through other venues. And that allows you to stay in business and to continue to thrive and to continue to display your mastery so that people can benefit from it. That's more of the perspective that we want people to understand. A lot of people sit around and they wait because they think that they have to be an expert before they can actually present a product. You have to be the expert within yourself. And then once you get into position to offer other things, then you do that. I like the example that you used in terms of Walmart, and I always like that example, because Walmart, they have a lot of options for the shopper where they can come into Walmart and they can get pretty much all of their basic needs met. The question becomes, I don't know if a lot of people looked at it this way, are they really the best at pharmacy? Are they better than your Rite Aid, your Eckerd, your CVS? Maybe not. Are they better in terms of car repair, better than your Firestones and your Goodyears? Maybe not. Are they better at clothing than your bigger stores? Maybe not. But
you can get everything there, though.
You can get everything there. That's right. And the quality is decent enough for you to take advantage of it. That's the way that I want you to look at your business and your marketplace, where start where you are. You be the expert, you be the master, and then you bring that to the marketplace as you are, and then expand from that point.
Oh, Joseph, that was magnificent. I have to jump in and piggyback on that really quick. Thank you so much, because wow, I love the way he expressed that. He's such a great communicator. He just always has just the perfect flow of mastery in his communication. But yeah, to your point of what you just brought up, is helping people to understand in terms of being the expert, as you mentioned, of yourself, is it's not about looking at things in this traditional way, because something that I teach is that when it comes to different levels of expertise, and as you mentioned, Joseph, about sharing, from the place where you are and being able to present that level of mastery or demonstration in the marketplace is so important, is that you don't have to be this chief authority, because you can be the person who is 1 or 2 steps ahead of the person who doesn't know, and then you provide your wisdom and insight based on theirs. So you are still an expert or an authority, but there are just different levels of it. And so when you can present that to others, that, okay, I'm creating a publication or a product based off of the person who needs an entry level into that. So they're more of info awareness preneurs in a sense. So people who can bring the information. Like, I have a background, you know, in journalism. And so, you know, with journalism, it's not about being the expert, so to speak, or the authority. And I leverage that, you know, within my business frameworks, and produce, you know, several journal style publications. Is journalists are ones who can go out and they can research and they can find or have their own experiences, but they bring back to the public something that is palatable, and they crafted it in a way from their own research and discoveries to be able to report it. Now, what they're reporting all the time doesn't mean that they're you know, an expert on that, but they are the expert in being able to communicate and articulate what has actually taken place in a particular area, or just whatever. So they're great spokespersons. And so people can begin to see themselves as these journalists of their experience. And I say, become a journalist of your life. And Queen Gina, that's something you really, you know, have embodied, you know, based on our work together, is that when you become a journalist of your life and your experience, then you can track, you know, your own success, your own progress, or just the different wisdoms that you've learned, and be able to just share that, you know, with others, just in a very normal, organic way. And it doesn't have to be that you are presenting yourself as an expert, but you are giving information or tips or wisdom that can, you know, that can help people. So I would definitely invite the listeners to start looking at your journey as a journalist, and take an inventory of where have you actually been able to provide some advice, or you've learned something, and now you can come back and actually share that, you know, just with others in an organic way, just reporting it, so to speak. That kind of takes the intimidation off of having to feel like you have to be an authority. Now, in my case, because I have cross-trained and studied in great depth, and have become an expert in the areas that I present. But a lot of that is that being able to marry my life's experiences and additional studies, you know, together, and reference those places that I've learned from, and be able to, you know, present that to the public. So yeah, so you don't have to be an expert or authority. You can share, as mentioned before, as someone who you're 3 or 4 or 5 steps ahead, you know, of the other person who needs that. So thank you, Joseph, for allowing me to segue.
So that often those people who have just been through whatever the experience is or the learning are often able to empathize with the learner in a way. Somebody who has absolute mastery, you know, their capacity to break it down to and understand the difficulty that somebody is having in terms of taking things on board. I'm not saying it always happens, but those people who have, you know, what do they say? You know, those the best way to learn is to teach someone else.
That's right.
Not only does that enhance your own learning, but you're close enough to be able to really understand the challenges that the new learner has. Absolutely. And to be able to support them through that.
And I think that's where a lot of people discount themselves. Yeah. They don't understand that you have a message and you have a way of presenting something that is unique to you. And you have people out there that connects to your way of expressing it explaining it and showing it, that may not get it that same way from other people. So you have to take ownership and value what you bring to the table. And this is what makes the bigger businesses more successful, is they have that understanding and they have that confidence. and they know that what they have, it may not be as good as what someone else has from a certain person's perspective, but they
Right.
have a unique audience that they are aligned with, and their message resonates there. So you have to make sure that you value that.
I think that's really
Absolutely.
true. And also to recognize, you know, there are 700 billion people or 70 billion people on the planet. Not
Yes.
Right.
everybody is going to be the right person to support and help everybody, but there are
Right.
enough people out there for each of us to find the right people to support and the right people to support us.
Absolutely. Well stated. Well stated. You know, something I want to share really quickly also on the note of multiplicity entrepreneurship and being able to multiply yourself in a diverse way is when you can leverage areas of your life and not necessarily always the areas that are what you feel you're gifted in or they've been your primary areas of expertise. This allows you to serve different audiences at a variety of levels. It's something I've been able to do, you know, for years. So let's say, for instance, that something that's irrelevant, so to speak, to the job or the career that you have, your areas of expertise, and it's just something you would give someone some advice for just in life. You could create a product just based on that and put it on a separate platform, which is something I'll talk about a little bit later. And, you know, start thinking about different ways that, aside from just your traditional area that you feel credible in, just what are some areas in life that you can provide some wisdom or some insights, or just as was mentioned earlier, things that you've been learning, and then you turn around and be able to present that. And I think I like what Joseph said in terms of, yes, most people do discount themselves and they aren't really valuing, you know, who they are. And this is the benefit of being able to multiply yourself, because you can bring the wholeness and the full expression of who you are at different points, you know, within your entrepreneurial journey, and be able to service a variety of individuals, you know, with just, you know, things that you do. So when you can turn around and be the learner that's helping the other learner, just as Gina mentioned, that's the best way to position yourself, and actually do not delay. Once you start learning something, then yes, turn around and see how you can start sharing that with other people. Don't wait until you think, oh, I got to build up, you know, more around this. And like I said, look for the people and let your audience be the ones who don't know about this. And you're like, I have to report this. I've got to tell somebody, you know, about this. And like I said, they can start up, you know, something for you. But I'll talk a little bit later about how to actually start categorizing and a few things that could be done. But yeah, this is, you know, such an important conversation. And the reason why it is the new norm is, and has to be the requirement, is because as we've been talking, you look back and see what has been happening over just the progression of the business world and the marketplace, and how those structures are crumbling, even at their best levels of trying to innovate in all these different ways. But when you don't incorporate the chief cornerstones that are required for next level building, then all other ground will certainly be sinking sand, even at its best attempts of technology and innovations, all these different things. Multiplicity entrepreneurship is going to be a requirement with the multifacetedness that it brings for businesses to be able to expand continually and express these higher levels of the callings, so that they never allow themselves to get boxed in. And then that, I think that has really been the problem, is that when businesses, and I'll just say yes, the whole framework of the business marketplace and even finances, they have done what you all hear me talk a lot about, is containerize themselves. And the way that they've been leveling up has been in this how can I say it? It's kind of a hierarchy type of structure, but they don't do what I say is the longitudinal, latitudinal approach, where it's a holistic expansiveness. They've been doing it's either one, it's either longitude or latitude, but not both, and that really has just constricted the abilities for the marketplace as a whole, the consumer and the service provider, to be able to really have this win-win. And I know that I can get into a whole lot around that, but when you don't have the multifacetedness that the multiplicity entrepreneurship brings to the table, it's doomed from the start. And now Joseph can really speak to this, you know, in terms of when you don't diversify in this way, because if you're in just a container, then you're not going to be diverse, because there's just this one focus on it's got to be this way, and we're focused on, you know, one niche or one product. But Joseph, you jump in, because that's your area on the diversify or disintegrate.
Well, as I listen to what you're saying, and I listen to Gina doing the introductions, we keep hearing the word, I know the listeners are hearing the word over and over: multiplicity, multiplicity, multiplicity.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's very, very important, because you have to really multiply and expand at that rapid a pace. Mm-hmm. The things that you're doing and the areas that you can present those things in. Yeah. This avoids you getting to a point where you actually disintegrate. To make a great example, ice cream doesn't sell as well in the winter. So what you can do is you can take that ice cream cone and figure out how to make a crust so that you can make pies. Yes. For Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter and all of those days coming forth as the winter goes on. Mm-hmm. Same product, but you're reformatting it during a time where what you've been doing has not necessarily been selling well. Right. So when one door closes, you reformat what you've already been doing and present it in another way. Absolutely. That's the idea that I want you to use in terms of understanding what's taking place in the marketplace now. It is clear that one traditional way of doing things is closing down. Even if you want to think that it's closing down temporarily, many businesses cannot afford to be without income for a couple of months. They literally will become defunct or disintegrate just as a result of not having income for a couple of months. So even if you're looking at it from that perspective, because some people are thinking that things will get back to normal or the way that they were, whether they do or whether they don't, you want to be prepared for what's taking place. You want to be properly positioned so that regardless of what the marketplace is and how the marketplace is being presented, whether certain things are closed or other things are open, you have venues and you have avenues of expression in so many different places that no matter what the market does, you're still able to profit and thrive. Yes. That's what we mean by diversity. That's what we mean by multiplicity. Mm-hmm. Being able to offer more so that no matter what closes, you still have a door open.
Absolutely. Well stated. I loved that analogy that you shared in terms of seasonal, because that is very important. And what you said about the ice cream factor. And it's true. It's that in looking at that and how many ways can you repurpose and reposition, like you were talking about with the, you know, the ice cream cone, you know, so to speak, but even with the ice cream. So what do you do differently in the wintertime with ice cream? Whether you put it in some hot chocolate or you make ice cream cake, so you change
there are ways,
it up. There are ways. Absolutely, yes. There are ways, and it is in the simplicity in what we're talking about in terms of, you know, your everyday life experiences, how it helps you to reframe your way of thinking and rearrange how you've thought about things. It helps you to reposition so that in your external reality, you can start to bring forth something that Joseph talks a lot about, and he's been coined in this, is talking about innovation. And we've been having a lot of dialogue around that. And that has been one of the missing pieces for sure within the business world, is when there's not that innovation, then the innovation cannot come at its highest level. And that's been the biggest elephant in the room for sure, that has been missing in terms of the spiritual and source component. And when I say this, I'm not talking about in a traditional way, not in a religious, type of format, nothing that is institutionalized. I am just talking about the true connection to the whole of all that is. And if you fail to incorporate that in your business expressions or what you're doing, again, it's going to be doomed to fail, because we have to know we're sourced here to provide, everything that we're bringing forth. And we have to be more reliant on that connection than we are to our strategies and to the blueprints and everything. And it goes back to what I said earlier about when we master self and we master our divinity, that co-creative power, within us, then yes, we are able to, as we say, diversify, multiply, maximize, and even monetize, these efforts. But I definitely want to get into sharing, since you brought up the revenue factor, since certainly want to start talking about that. But before I do, Gina, is there anything that you want to say before I move forward?
It just seems to me that it's so easy to get trapped in the cage of convention. And what will people think? And if I go with the crowd, then nobody can blame me if it goes wrong. Or if I don't try and I don't look for opportunities to do something differently, then nobody's going to point the finger and say you should have, could have, and so on. I mean, just sort of in terms of embracing your divinity and giving yourself the opportunity to make that connection with the higher wisdom, to be quiet and to just embrace the fact that when you do, the level of creativity and innovation that comes out of that is something which is just mind-blowing. I suspect that's one of the reasons why some people want to stay in their comfort zone, because that's the known, that feels safe. Whereas when you open this up to expansion, it can feel at least unsettling, for some people quite scary, but the rewards are just worth it. It's just so amazing when you do.
You're absolutely right. And now people will find that they actually don't have a choice. And that's where we are in the world, in the marketplace, is no, this is a requirement now. You're going to have to plug in to this higher connection. You don't have an option at this point. And to be able to expand in the ways that we're talking about, because there's already been this long duration of time, which feels like centuries, for sure, that the way businesses and the marketplace has been formulated. And obviously it has not been set up for the win-win for the consumer nor the service provider. And so all of these structures and frameworks are falling away, and every business owner and anyone who is a part of building these new structures for moving forward, everybody's going to have to come to a non-traditional come to Jesus moment, in a sense, in the business world. And I don't mean that from a, like I said, a religious standpoint. It's just coming to the higher connection. You're going to have to realize you cannot move forward and build without the chief cornerstones of what is required. And the multiplicity frameworks, and as I said, doing multifaceted empire building, it is a requirement. This is the new normal. You might could have gotten away before where you could pedal around, so to speak, and do a few things, throw spaghetti against the wall, try a few inventions. No, now you have got to be plugged in to this higher connection to be able to facilitate what has to be. So if people aren't going in now to do the innovation that Joseph talks about, then you will not have the external innovation to be able to be sustainable in this new era marketplace. But that's a whole nother, it's a whole nother training that could be done around that. So something that I want to share, or Joseph, did you have anything you wanted to say on that before I move forward?
I just want to say very quickly, nobody.
I feel his energy.
It was hovering. It was hovering.
Yes, it was, definitely.
But nobody can express your divinity. Nobody can express your mastery.
Right.
Nobody can express the offerings that are uniquely yours. There has been millions and even billions of years that have gone into the making of you. And what you bring forth, only you can uniquely bring that forth.
Yes.
A lot of us have an inclination to imitate. We tend to go toward imitating examples that we see outside of ourselves, and we do our best rendition of that. What we try and focus on is living from the inside out as opposed to living from the outside in. And that's that innovation that you're talking about, AliNICOLE, that has to take place. We have to dig within ourselves and make that connection with that source that is actually in us. And when we do that, that actually comes out in everything that we express, whether it's in a business format or in a conversation with someone. It comes out, but that is uniquely ours. And the important thing is to take ownership of that and to really lean into that, because it would be such a waste to go to the grave and to never have done that, and to never have expressed the things that are deeply deposited in us. They're there for a reason, and they're treasures. It's up to us to uncover them and then to present them for the world to see.
Yes. Oh, that was so rich. I'm glad I stopped so you could so you could share that. Yeah, that was so rich. Our valuables that we're here to bring, the treasure chest, so to speak. And the treasure chest has multiple gems and jewels and different, things of high value within it, which goes back to the multiplicity. Is that's why it's not just one particular thing. And something that Joseph and I talk a lot about in terms of when there's been this focus on, you just focus on one thing. Well, our one thing is that we do actually focus on one thing, and it's called multiplicity. The multiplicity is the main thing. And so within that main thing, and that one contains all. So when you actually position your focus, and Joseph and I have, done segments, on this, and again, it's our work. When you focus on the oneness, the one thing, and multiplicity being that one thing that you focus on, then it shows you how within the oneness to multiply your gifts, and your offerings in a variety of ways. And so something that I want to share that I've been doing, over the years, and I've developed several platforms, and I've leveraged, instead of using my primary websites, which I have several, of those, they tell kind of just more about me and the concept and different things like that. But I don't have a website that just showcases all of, what I do, because it's not designed for that, because that's the part that gets confusing. And Gina, going back to what we talked about earlier, is that when people want to be able to express all these different aspects and have a holistic experience, they can do that, but it is a way that it has to be positioned, and having it in one particular place is not the best way to present that. So that's why I teach on the categorization. So something I've done is I use platforms such as Tumblr, Blogger, LiveJournal, and those platforms, they showcase different products and publications and services in a niched, focused way. So whomever lands on that one particular site, it's going to be focused on that particular niche. And on that particular site, it's only going to list what my role is in service. service. It's not going to list all the other things, you know, that I do, or even talk about my branding in terms of it being the, you know, while she does it all in Multiplicity. It doesn't name any of that. It's very laser targeted. It is the same with my publications. If you get a particular publication, it's going to talk about my role for that particular focus and my platforms for that particular focus. So it won't talk about any of the other things that I do. It may talk about me being, you know, an author and a published author of multiple journals and publications for different niches, but it doesn't get into all, you know, into all those different things. So the best way to really start, I would say repositioning, because the majority of the people who are going to be listening to this are people who have already been brands, and they've already been, you know, in the marketplace and in business. So they're more in a repositioning aspect for their brands and their empires. And so I teach about starting to categorize yourself as this sort of cash flow conduit system to be able to produce this ultimate revenue success. And I recommend that people serve at least 5 different niche markets with their brands and with their business endeavors. And I know some are thinking like, what in the world? I don't think I'm trained in that many areas, but you know, it goes back to what I said previously, that you can look at just an aspect of your life and take it outside of, like I said, the talents and things that you feel that you're so gifted in, and just start thinking of how you can serve from an entry-level standpoint to, you know, different audiences. And so when you know that, like I said, pick about 5 areas that you desire to serve in, because things are calling you regardless of whether we pay attention to it or not. I know Joseph can agree with this. We actually have areas of our lives that are wanting to be expressed. And one of the ways that we can tune into that is, you know, for one, what are we curious about? What are we passionate about? Again, outside of a traditional job, what's something like Gina, you love gardening. You do gardening, and you find gardening to be very therapeutic for you, very grounding in everything. That's right. You do, because you talk quite a bit about that.
I do.
The gardening.
The window of my soul. It's where I go to fill up and feel really connected. Yes.
So that is a classic example right there of a niche that could actually be served. If that's something that's just in her everyday life. And so let's just say that she published a publication on that, or some type of guide, or just a journal, since she talked about it being a place where she grounds herself and feels, you know, really connected. So that's something she's doing in her everyday life. Doesn't mean that she's out here, you know, teaching webinars and different things, you know, on that. However, she very well could, from just that organic place. And just so yeah, here's a journal I use when I'm in my garden. Sometimes I feel connected there. So it can be something really simple like that. And then she could, you know, create a platform on Tumblr or one of the other sites, you know, that I name. I prefer Tumblr to do these things. So she doesn't have to put that on her actual main website. It can just be a different component. And that's how she's actually serving a different niche market. That can open up to her being able to even teach a workshop. Someone may come across that and ask, you know, can you speak about this? Or, you know, can you teach me, you know, gardening? It can open up doors to so many things. Gina, I think you and I had a conversation one point. I made not necessarily a little joke, but it was kind of like a hint to, yes, someone might say, Gina, do you have some seeds? You know, you know, we'd be interested in that. So that's just, you know, an example. You know, people can transform hobbies into an impact, an income, you know, generator. And so there's just, you know, like I said, a variety of ways that it can be done. And Tumblr, that platform, is primarily for what I call mini blogging, so to speak, But there are a variety of ways that you can leverage that particular platform. Something I like to do is create landing pages or blog landing pages that just have the products and the services. And on some of those, I'm not necessarily blogging, you know, as a blogger, but it's a way to be able to leverage it, to be able to advertise in something I call blogatizing. So it can be more like your own kind of blog, you know, commercial, something, you know, that you leverage. But I do a lot of, you know, trainings and teachings on this, but just to simplify it for the listening audience is that, you know, I've given a generalization of how you can take just different aspects of your life, you know, hobbies or even spirituality, and be able to create these separate offerings from your main core focus. So something I'm going to suggest is, I mentioned Tumblr. I'm big on Tumblr. And no, I'm not an affiliate, but but I do highly recommend it. So I want to actually share the benefits of leveraging Tumblr. Tumblr is one of those platforms where you can set it up with one email account, but you can have multiple blogs under the one email account. I mean, several. And so I'm definitely going to suggest to create a Tumblr account and then set up at least 5 blogs under that primary blog. You don't have to do this all at once, but just as you're thinking about what are at least 3 to 5 areas that you can, you know, you can serve in. And once you write those down and start getting a concept around it, then that's when you can, you know, create those platforms as you feel guided. The other thing I'm going to recommend for creating the passive income that also can be lead generating, so to speak, is to publish books for free that are what I call micro messengers or mini books, books that are less than 70 pages. You know, in this case, I would say less than 50 pages, so maybe a 30-page publication for each of the industries that you would like to serve in. You can use Kindle Direct Publishing, which is, you know, a company of Amazon, and be able to publish your works for free and be able to leverage those publications, and whether you create them in a journal format, a planner format, or just a simple, you know, mini book, how-to tip books. So those are, you know, just a variety of ways, but you can leverage these to lead into signature offerings, because I do encourage people to create high-end offerings. But from just the passive income, so to speak, that I was mentioning, is when you can develop publications and maybe even an audio, even if it's an MP3 or so, you can leverage these and put these on those platforms and also have them to lead into some signature or higher end offerings. So yeah, so those are just a few ways. So I guess to sort of sum this up before we do some wrap up comments and commentary. So Gina, one of the things that I want to just sort of go over, and if you all can jump in if you feel I need to, you know, share something else, but definitely a call to action would be for the listeners to think about how can I say 5 top areas. What's coming to mind right now is, because I know we have business owners and then the solo entrepreneurs, and some may be thinking, well, this sounds what you've shared to be more for solo entrepreneurs rather than corporations. But corporations also too can think about 5 areas within their business that they can start to look at different and reposition, or just brainstorm and say, you know, what are some areas, get curious, what are some areas that we can start, you know, diversifying, and start being able to see how they can formulate a few things. I'm definitely going to recommend taking time to get present and still, and making this connection to the higher innovative aspect of who you are, which starts with what Joseph talked about, the innovation. But yeah, definitely starting with those five, thinking about 5 areas. But is there anything else, Joseph, that you would like to add, you know, to what I shared just from the start off? Because there's so much around this that these are just, you know, basic entry levels to being able to multiply and diversify.
Well, I know that you covered that very, very well in terms of ways that people can present what they have that could be revenue generating, as well as ways that they can innovate and innovate themselves during this time. Just one thing that I wanted to make mention of is to not overlook the tools that are available to us during this time, which one of which is digital marketing and YouTube and video marketing.
Yes.
Which is very important as well. My great colleague, Rob Deptford, has a series where he gets vocal on video and encourages people to do that also. And I'm happy to be a part of that process as well. So that is a way to present your products also during this time so that you can be successful, so that you can get your message out, as well as the many other things that you mentioned earlier.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that was perfect because, yeah, being able to position it in the marketplace, like you said, yeah, I gave the fundamentals for sure, like you said, what you can do to start setting up, but absolutely the marketing aspect, you have to have that. And so I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Gina, would love to hear your any thoughts or things that you have, or anything you maybe want us to bring up before we close out.
I think I would say to anyone listening to this, you are the common denominator in your life. You take yourself into every moment of every day. And it's absolutely your choice to stay doing what you're doing. But if you always do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've already got. And there is no doubt that we are moving into a new time, which requires a new way of being.
Yes.
And I would say, you know, here are 2 people who are offering you a lifeline, if you like, a way forward. So grab it. You don't have to do this on your own, and you don't have to do it all at once. Take it step by step. If you ate a whole cow in one sitting, you'd have the most dreadful indigestion. But mouthful by mouthful, and if you're a vegetarian, you wouldn't eat a whole field of corn. But mouthful by mouthful, it can be really, really tasty. And I know that these 2 can offer you a way forward that's manageable. So if you'd like to learn more about this work with AliNICOLE and Joseph, visit the Multiplicity Monument Empires at www.themultiplicitymonumentempires.tumblr.com. I'm going to say that again, and I'm going to break that down. That's www.themultiplicitymonumentempires, all one word, .tumblr, TUMBLR.com. The Multiplicity-monumentempires.tumblr.com. And there'll also be additional information provided in the description box below for other ways to connect with them and to explore more. And I would really urge you to do so, because I know that they've made a very significant difference to the way in which I'm operating, and I know they can do huge things for you. So I'd just like to say to you, Joseph, and to you, AliNICOLE, thank you very much for a great session. And I do hope that people are going to take this on board and give themselves the very best opportunity as we move towards the new era and a new way of being. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
This has been awesome.
Yes, we appreciate you having us on. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, everyone.